Really lovely make today. We're going to be making Hana, which is a fabulous pencil case. In actual fact, thinking about it over the last couple of days, there are so many different things that you can put into Hana. Somebody suggested chocolate. Well, of course, I'll be up for that one. But yes, you could store your crochet hooks in there. You could store your knitting needles in there, pens and pencils, brushes, all those sort of things. It could be a wash bag. Why not? And make it so the inside is waterproof, perhaps. I'm up for anything, because once you make these sort of things, then they're going to be so useful for everything, aren't they? There's always going to be something that you can use it for. We love anything with a zip that we can put things into. And funnily enough, when I went to the West Norfolk textile show yesterday, which is just delightful, I actually bought a couple of I bought one pouch and I bought a needle case. Good afternoon. Well, do you know, it almost feels like it because it's light, isn't it? How fun. I bought a pouch yesterday. In fact, it's over there. I ought to show it to you. If I can grab it, I will show it to you later. And that's, of course, if I remember. So I hope you're all well. I hope you're all ready for a bit of stitching. It's a lovely little pattern. If you haven't got it yet, then head to the website and download yours. It's called Hana, H-A-N-A. I do keep squidging the bottom of it, that's it. H-A-N-A, and it's just a super duper little make. As you can see, it has open ends, but I talked this morning about you could put a snap fastener or a popper, depending on where you live, on the end of the zip tabs, and you've got a lovely shape. It's a lovely shape. I think maybe I was inspired by the Cambridge-Oxford boat race at the weekend. Of course, Cambridge won. And being a Cambridge girl, that's fine with me. I don't row. You've got to understand, I don't row. I just support the team. Yes. So if you're not a platinum member, then it's £1.25 in the shop. Platinum members of my lovely, fabulous online sewing group get all the Making It Mondays for free. That's part of the deal because they pay just a wee bit more than our wonderful gold members. So that's the deal. So join up, why not? So this is Hana, and it's a lovely... Abby said she watched it too. It was exciting. Yes, it was. There wasn't the water choppy. God, dear, oh dear. And then, of course, they always throw the coxswains in at the end, don't they? And of course, my goodness me, that water, not only it's the Thames, it's going to be mucky, but also freezing. So I think, was it last year or the year before? Maybe it was 2 years ago. And they changed location. And it was in a location where it would be very difficult for the public to get to. I think it was along the Ouse, not far from me. And that I think that was I quite liked that. But of course, the Thames is obviously the capital. You can get all with the press there and all the spectators, but I quite liked it when it was on the Ouse. Anyway, there we are. So we digress. Oh, hi Inga. Inga's from Denmark. Welcome. Oh, we've got lots of people watching already. My goodness me. We've got Mandy and Inga. Carol. We've got Diane as well. We've got Marion. Iona. Was it Leona? I always get that one mixed up, don't I? And I do apologise. I don't mean to be rude. Deborah as well. We've got loads of people watching now. Now, first of all, I would like to say big commiserations to Sarah Payne, because Sarah unfortunately broke her leg this morning, which is pretty grotty, isn't it? And I've sent her my best wishes. And so if you haven't seen her Facebook Live from this morning, go and have a look-see and just wish her the very best and get well soon, Sarah, because obviously she's an incredibly busy girl and this is the last thing that she wanted. You think, oh my goodness me, why me? So yeah, do go and wish Sarah, wish her well anyway, and speedy recovery. But I think she's got a full leg plaster. Oh, poor girl. Can't wear those fancy shoes for a little while, Sarah. Yeah, so big commiserations to Sarah for that. Anyway, we make Hana tonight, and it's all about the pencil case. So if we have a quick look, let me just change the camera angle here. I've got a little bit of new technology tonight. Goodness knows how it's going to work. But here it is in all its glory, and it's got a lovely, lovely long zip extending quite a bit. Let me just move that. Extending quite a bit off the ends. And it really opens up beautifully. Look at that. It's absolutely gorgeous. So you can get lots of stuff in it, and it opens up so you can see. I think it would be quite nice for a makeup bag, especially if you're away, because you can open it up. And I've got a makeup bag. It's on my drawstring bag that you can get into and have a rummage and get what you can see what you need straight away. So that was the idea of it. Yes, and it's got a very long zip, as I say. Now, as I also said earlier, it's got this open end to it. Hopefully you can see that okay. And which is fine, and that's what the pattern should be like. Okay, that's how I designed it. However, you could put a popper or a snap fastener. I laugh because I get corrected quite a lot by our USA friends, and I love them dearly, but they do correct me quite a bit. You could put a snap fastener or a popper on there, and you could actually snap it shut, and that would help if that's what you want to do. It depends, I suppose, what you're going to use it for. The other thing we're doing is double rows of stitching here. Now the reason why we do double rows of stitching, and if you don't do that, you'll see what I mean. You will get a ruffled edge. You'll get this lovely wavy edge, which maybe is attractive. I don't know. I don't think so. But if you do a second row of stitching, it keeps that zip lovely and flat. If not, your stitching is right up here, and you get this sort of wavy effect of the zip inside. So that's just a little pointer there, and it's great because all of these things is we live and learn, don't we? We live and learn, and we learn how to to do all these different techniques, and hopefully enjoy the demonstrations. Now, we've got a few things to do, but the first thing I want to say is, and I'll keep mentioning it, and if I don't mention it, perhaps if any of my admin are watching, they'll mention it. For everybody watching live, that's between 7 p.m. to, let's say, around about 8 p.m. Sometimes we run over, don't mean to. I've got a little giveaway, and it's a Kim kit. So if you know anything about me and Kim kits, you'll know that this is a little treasure trove of bits. Liberty fabrics and buttons and threads and all sorts of stuff. So it's only if it's live. So if you join us between 7 and 8 tonight, and obviously you won't hear this bit in 15 minutes time. So I will try, and you join in that time, I will try to remember to repeat that. But if I don't, then perhaps the admin, if any of the ladies are watching, they can remind everybody, or even remind me, that we've got this little giveaway. And I do love a little giveaway every now and again. So there we are. So it's a little Kim kit, which is, as I said, a little treasure trove of goodies. I shall put it over here and hope I don't forget. Right, so let's get cracking with making the Hana. So let me just bring all my bits and pieces in here. So let's move the one we made out of the way. I've got all my bits and pieces cut. Now in the pattern, obviously you get full instructions on the sizes that you're cutting and all of that. There's also a template in there for the ends. So here are the ends. So you'll have 2 in the outer fabric, which are stabilised, and you'll have 2 in the lining fabric, which are not stabilised. What I suggest you use is a medium weight iron-on stabiliser. I really feel, and I said this earlier, you don't want to be using wadding. If you want to try to use wadding, I'm not going to stand in your way, but it's quite tricky to machine around here with a straight piece, this straight piece here, onto the curve. Okay, it's quite tricky. So any other bulk, you might come under a little bit of problems, okay? The first thing I want you to notice is that I found the centres of my pieces. So on the curved edge, I found my centres, okay, and I've made I put a little clip in there. I've clipped in a V. You can see it better now. Now I've got my hand out the way. Now this fabric is the Liberty fabric, I do believe, that Abigail was selling a couple of weeks ago. And it's absolutely, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure I've got it out that heap. But if anybody bought the Liberty bundle from Abigail, it's absolutely gorgeous. Right, so the other thing we need to prepare, and this is only preparation at the moment, is the zip tabs need to have Kath says, is the giveaway YouTube too if they comment? Yes, I will somehow or other magically put the YouTube names into the hat as well. It's the sort of thing I can do. So don't be worried. If you are at all worried, hop over to Facebook and just say hello and then I'll know you're there. So on the zip tabs, they're not stabilized, by the way. In the pictures they are, and that was that was not the best of ideas for me, to be honest, because it was too thick. But you're going to turn over 1/4 inch on each zip tab, so that's just the prep. The first thing we're going to do is, let me just get my phone out of the way because it was propped up on my machine, which is not a good idea, is that we're going to put right sides together of our ends, our end panels, I'm sure that's what I'm calling them. So your right sides together, and you're going to stitch across that top bit there. So if I pop a pin in, not that you'll need a pin, but just so you've got a visual, and it's in the pattern as well, we're going to stitch across there and across there. And if you're at all worried about your 1/4 inch seam allowance, then just draw a line. It's easy enough. Let me see if I've got a little ruler here. But be wary that if you do draw a line of 1/4 inch, just be aware that, and I'll use my add 1/4, which seems quite sensible, and you see, yeah, is that your pen line will be just outside of that 1/4 inch mark, because obviously your pen line is going against that 1/4 inch. So if you do draw a line, just go on the inside of that, and then you will be on your 1/4 inch mark. Yeah, it's great to do the 1/4 inch, but you just need to be aware. Oh, where did I put my pin? Here we go. You just need to be aware that it distorts it slightly. Okay. So we're going to get the machine in. Just give me a sec while I get that in. And let's just, I've got a side camera and it's really, really up close today. Oh, do you see? I've got my, there, I've got my Natsuko with my clips. There we go. Can you see? That sits on my desk all the time now. It's just such a lovely, if you haven't seen that yet, that isn't a mim. It's because it's tougher to make than a mim because of the hand stitching here. But Natsuko is for sale as a pattern on the website. There isn't any video for it. I just haven't got, oh, you can't see it. There. That's because I've got new technology. I don't know what I'm doing. So Natsuko, as I say, sits on my desk the whole time, and it's got my clips in. Let me show you again, because obviously I was being a fool. And yeah, so it's a great pattern. It's not a mim, as I said. So for fear of repeating myself yet again, but it's the hand stitching around here that's quite tough. So I want you to be aware of that. Okay, I want you to be aware of that. So I'll pop Natsuko there. Natsuko was a lovely, beautiful Japanese girl that came to stay with us years and years and years ago. Let's try. I'm just going to move my camera, guys. So bear with, because I want to just get that lined up for you and comfortable for me. So there we are. That's not too bad. Yes, she came to stay with us a few years. Well, gosh, what would I say? About 30 years ago. And she was just adorable, absolutely adorable. So I'm just going to change my stitch to a regular straight stitch. I've been filming today, so I had it on zigzag. So let's just get that lined up. So we're going to join those two pieces along the top there. I'll try and keep my hands out of the way, but it might be a little bit tricky, but I'm trying to get it this angle. I want you to see how I stitch the curves and everything, because if anything is important, that is. And then again, across there. There we go. Give it a cut. Now, I won't bother ironing this, but you really want to just finger press that seam. Ideally, you're going to press this now, and then you're going to fold it over. You don't need to top stitch it. It won't hurt. I mean, it's not going to, you know, these pieces are now solid, if you like. You're not going to do anything else with them. You know what I mean? That's the open end. So you might want to top stitch there, but a good press will sort that out. But what we will do is run around the outside of this, and we're just going to baste those two layers together. Now, I didn't do this in the photographs, and you'll think, oh, that doesn't show that. That's because it was only when I went to put the second one on, I thought, oh, basting those layers together would be a great idea. So I think I mention it in the pattern, but I don't actually do it for the photographs, which, you know, no loss. So just basting it together. The light is not brilliant here. I could do with moving the light, but there we are. You can see that I've basted them together, so all the layers are lovely. Oh, hi Dee Dee, how are you? Are you okay? Oh, I always ask, what time is it there? But of course our clocks have changed, so now I've no idea. So with the second one, you just finger press that, get a really nice crease going on there, and just then fold it over. You don't really want to see any of the orange, as beautiful it is as it is. You don't really want to see it. And then again, we'll just baste around there just to hold all those layers together. And it really does help. You only want to do about 1/8 of an inch, because you don't want to go into the seam allowance. Okay, so are they expensive? What's expensive? Oh, my UX8. Oh yes, it's, yeah, look, I didn't catch that there. Do you see? So I might have to ask John to come and move my light. Not sure I've got enough room here, but anyway. Yeah, so I didn't catch it there. It looks a bit rough. But let me just have a little play with that, because I don't want that to spoil my stitching. It's because I was reading your comments and not paying attention. Let's just undo that little bit there. And just there. Do you see how I've shifted? I don't know if you can see. It's just, oh dear. I ought to get my quick unpick, but it's obviously it's not going to be where I want it. I'm just going to quickly do that again, guys. Try and catch that down, because what you really want is this to be as neat as you can be. So, but I would suggest, if you iron it, this is not good. If you iron it, you won't have that bother. It will all be absolutely super. There we are. That's better, because it's holding all the layers together now. Now, tell me, that is dark, isn't it? I'm going to message John and see if he can come and move my light. Let me just bear with, guys. Just pay attention to that bit there. Oh dear, let's see if I can find him. He's way down on the list. Right, can you move my light? Question mark. There we go. And then he'll say, what light? But he might come up. Yeah, so anyway, we have now stitched both of our ends together. Okay, so they're nice and neat, and it means that once you've stitched them together, you're now dealing with one piece of fabric rather than two pieces that are flapping together. Okay, I don't think there is any footy on tonight, is there? I don't know. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's not worry too much. So let's move the machine out of the way. And oh, hi Joanne, first time you've watched. Oh wow, do you know we've been going, is it 3 years? Is it 3 years we've been going? I'm not sure. Kath will be able to tell me. Right, now we've got this piece, we're going to stitch the outer piece on first, okay? So don't worry about your lining. All we're concentrating on is one end and our main piece. Now I've got it zoomed in because I want you to try and see everything that I'm doing. And what you've done with the main piece and the lining is to notch it. So if I bring it in, I want you to have a look. There's a notch cut out there and there's a notch cut out there. And in the pattern you'll see this as well, where you've got a notch cut out of your end panel, and you've got, this is the halfway point. So if I was to fold this in half, and it's already been stabilised, this fabric, all I've done is got my scissors, you know, and I've literally just cut a little triangle off the corner there, just to make a little notch, and that notch lines up with the centre of our end panel, okay? And this is where I want you to start stitching from. So I don't want you to start stitching from the top or anywhere that you've marked. In the pattern it tells you you need to mark your fabric. I want you to start stitching from the middle, okay? Because then you've got every chance of it fitting nicely. From the top and bottom edge, or the two tops really, because this is where the zips are going to go, you've marked down here and here, okay? So I've already done that, and it's already it's in the pattern, so there's no guesswork. You've got the marks there. Oh, here comes John. John, I wonder if you could move that light to behind my camera here. Is that possible? Oh, there's a lot of sighing going on. So in the pattern you've got this these two marks here, and that's where the end of your end panel, where you stitched here, finishes. So if I was to place it on here, it's going to finish there, okay? Well, actually it's going to finish like that if we want to be pedantic. So that top edge will fit on that mark there, and believe me, it will fit. You think initially it's like, how is that going to go on to that? But it does. So right sides together, and what I suggest you do, just to start you off, is pop a pin in, okay? And then that at least you've got a fighting chance of holding this all together. So let me just cut that thread. The other thing you want to do is you're actually going to stitch on the straight edge on top. So although we've put that there, and again, not a very good bit of stitching, but let's ignore it. Oh, everybody's saying hello, John. He's smiling, but he's also, I think, a little bit growly. It was a bit dark on my needle, love, so I was just watching. Anyway, so we're going to stitch on this side, so it's probably just as well that we need to move those marks, okay? So let's move those marks onto the wrong side of the fabric. Oh dear. And all I'm doing here is just creasing it, and then I'm going to mark it, okay? So at least we know, we can see them now, can't we? And then if we do the same on the other side. Now you don't need to do this with the lining, okay? The lining will just, the lining, to be honest, goes right up to the top, so you'll see as we go along. So let's just, there isn't a spare one there. Oh, that's a spare one. Okay, great. Plugs, we're talking plugs. So we've got the little end panel on. We've got right sides together. So if we look it like that, we've got the right, oh, thank you. That might do. I might have to move it, but that's absolutely super. Thank you, love. Bye. They're saying we appreciate you, John. Oh, there's a grumpy. So we're going to start stitching from the centre, and we're going to go out, and we're going to match the end of our piece here with this little bit there where the fold is to that mark there, and trust me, it will fit. What I also want you to do is to cut into this. I want you to see, can you see yeah, you can see those cut marks there. And as we move this around the machine, those cut marks will allow you, look, to go around the curve beautifully. Can you see that? I mean, that looks absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. So it allows you, but I want you to take it slow and steady, okay? I don't want you to rush. I'm thinking, will that fit? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is move you back to the side camera again and see how the light is. I might have to move it. He's done a cracking job. So we'll have a little look-see. Let's just move me bits a little bit. Just move my other end out the way. Right, okay, side camera, let's have a look. It's not too bad, is it? I might move it a wee bit, just bear with. Oh, sorry about my head. I don't know, it's not too bad. If I hold that up. Oh yeah, that's okay, isn't it? Oh, you can't see it. Well, I'm a fool. That's because I'm using this new equipment. That's better, isn't it? You can see that. Oh dear. Sack the demonstrator. Right, so we're going to start from the centre, as I said. If you want to put your machine on, if you want to put your 1/4 inch foot on or anything like that, please do. We're going to start with the needle down. We're going to do a little back stitch just to make sure that's all secure, and then we're going to start. Now, I do suggest you don't pin this. I also suggest that perhaps quilter's tape maybe not a good idea, because it means with quilter's tape you would definitely have to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance to hide the tape. So I'm kind of figuring it's better to go freestyle. In other words, let's just machine as we go. But every single bit of this straight piece that I'm putting on has had a snip, well, pretty much every piece. And I want you to try and see how that works, because unless you get those raw edges together, you're going to lose some of your seam allowance, right? It's surprising, and you really want to wriggle that fabric so it goes around, okay? And you're just going to do a wee bit at a time. I mean, I'm not even doing 1/2 inch's worth of stitching. You also want a small stitch, okay? You don't want a stitch length of 3. You want a stitch length of either what's the setting it comes in, is about 2.4, or take it down because you're stitching curves, okay? And you won't do a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. I would suggest you do a little bit less than that, okay? Now do your best to get up to that mark. Let me just try and move this around. Using your stiletto will really help you keep that all straight. Now I'm just a wee bit short there, and that's possibly because I didn't stick to my raw edges together, but I'm okay with that. Let's just have a little look. Now do you see where the edge of my outer here and the edge of my end panel aren't quite lined up? Now that will make a difference of whether this fits at the end here. But you know what? We've got to remember what we're making. We're making a pencil case. So let's just relax, yeah? Now when we come to the other side, I don't want you to stitch on the curve. I still want you to stitch on the straight. So this is where you've got to trust yourself that that's all going to fit. See, and that's perfect, that side, because I've actually gone edge to edge. So I want you to start on the straight at your notch, not where your notch is, where your mark is. So line this up. I ought to bring it in a little bit because of the other side, but you do it properly. This one's a little bit short, do you see? So just a wee bit short. I want you to see that and learn. But what I want you to do is I want you to start from this end here, and I want you to pin the top of your end panel so it fits that beautifully. And now this will be a bit tricky, guys. I'm always going to be honest with you with stuff. So I'm going to take my pin out, so I don't need it there. But now we've got to fit this other half to that curve. Do you see? So we're just going to go for it, basically. Make sure your raw edges are sitting together, and your stiletto will help you. Okay, it's your friend. And just bring that around. Take your time, move your fabric. Use your, if you haven't got a stiletto, use anything that's a real sharp point, not a pin or a needle. It's not strong enough. And it's not long enough as well. You can see my hand is right back here. They are the most useful tool that I've got in my sewing room. Well, apart from a sewing machine. Gosh, I'll get rid of that. So you can see, as coming around here, try not to get a pleat into your work. And if you're very careful, you should be fine. It's all been measured out for you. So let's see how we go. So we're just coming to where we kind of the middle. So let's just move that fabric. Got a tiny little pleat there. My fault. Okay, so that's the whole. Oh no, that's okay. That's the whole of one end done. Sorry, that's the whole of one end done. Okay, and then the next step will be putting the other end on. So that's how it looks at the minute. And where you think you've got a pleat, it won't be. It just needs a little bit of an iron. Okay, because we're dealing with those curves. So it's perfectly fine. Okay, so now we're going to start on the other end. So right sides together with your little end panel. Let's pop a pin in. And don't forget, you're going to clip into your straight edge. So for all of these edges here have been clipped. Okay, I don't know if you can see that on my finger. It's been clipped. So it's all ready to go. But once again, we're going from the back. And let's get the needle in. I'll do a little back stitch just to hold it. And once again, we're going to aim for this mark here. Okay, this is the mark. And this is where we're going to, up here, right up here. So we've got to get it round the bend. But try and keep those raw edges together. And if you think a little bit of quilter's tape will help you, then use it. And as I said, try and stick to just less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you can, because we've got to put the lining on next. So take it round slowly. You can see I'm doing very small bits of stitching. Try and keep those raw edges together, and this time it looks fine. So look, can you see? I think that's utter perfection. And we just go off the end, just past our mark. There we go. We'll have a look at that. Okay, happy? Happy with all of that? So it's not difficult, it's just a wee bit fiddly. So when we come up to this end, if you remember, we're going to put the fold again of our piece there. We're going to put up against our mark. Okay, so that's where, because we know that's where we want the end of our end panel to be. We'll pop a pin in. Better to use a pin than a clunky clip. Okay, so clips have their places and pins have their places. So now who says this? Chantal. I can never get the hang of corners. You know what? Chantal, the secret is cutting into it. Can you see? Is cutting into it. Now that cut is about 1/8 of an inch, okay, and that helps you curve your fabric around, okay, but also using a sharp object like a stiletto is my absolute top tip, okay, because a stiletto, you've got the real point there and it will go into your fabric and absolutely hold that fast. If you're using your fingers to hold it, your fingers will slip and you can't get them close enough, you can't get close enough to keep those edges together. So I would suggest, even if it's a real sharp pair of little embroidery scissors, I haven't got mine handy, but something that, no, I can't see them, so I'm not going to try and find them. Something that's going to grab your fabric and hold it together. Now it takes a little bit of practice, but also more than anything is you take it slowly. You'll see I don't rush, never rush when we're stitching curves, whatever's the point of rushing. So now we've got to stitch that other half, and again it's all just straight line stitching, so there's nothing to worry about, but we've got to make it fit. So again we're just pushing those raw edges to meet, so they're sitting absolutely parallel on top of each other, and as we go around that corner that fabric will open up and curve around, and that's what happens when you clip into it, okay, when you clip into it. So let's just push that out again. If you don't get those raw edges to fit, then the whole thing won't fit, okay? I know you might think, oh, you know, it doesn't matter, but it actually does, especially on curves. Yep, especially on curves. But just take your time. So look, as we come around, you can see I'm stitching, not even half an inch. And then I'm stopping, I'm readjusting, making sure everything is sitting beautifully. And there we are, on that home stretch. Why do you sew the flat to the curve? Because with the flat, you've got the ability to move it. So if you have a look at it, we can create a curve with the flat, but we can't make a curve flat. Yeah. So if we're stitching with the curve on top, we still need to cut the straight edge to fit the curve, and it's much easier to control it, to see it, to have that visual, than try to stitch on this side and make that fit to the straight edge. Okay, so always have the straight edge on top, always. So now let's just have a quick look on the overhead. Now we've got the ends on. Okay, we've got the ends on our I might just take that out a wee bit, guys, excuse me for just reaching out there, just a wee bit. That's it, that'll do. So now we've got our ends on like this, and it, you know, we're sort of almost getting there now. We're not there yet. We've got to repeat this all over again with the lining. So you know, if you can stay awake you'll see the lining being put in. So there is our pencil case with the outer done, okay, which is now super easy. All we've got to do is the lining. Now this is where photography really got the better of me, because this was very difficult to photograph. But what we need to do is right sides together with our lining end piece, okay? So look for the notches again on your lining. So let me pop that down. So on each piece, on opposite ends, so if I put this down, on opposite ends we have a notch, and those notches will work with the notch on the end panel, okay? So all you're going to do is right sides together, and you're going to do exactly what we've just done. So I'll pop a pin in so you can see it. Now this time we can't see the other straight edge. We can't see that at all. So we have to just hope that we've got that all straight and lovely and fitting. And it should be absolutely fine. And you're only going to the same seam allowance as what you did before, perhaps just a wee bit bigger. Now this time we're going to stitch our lining so it fits right up to the top. You can see what I'm saying about photography now. So all of this half, as we've just done, is going to fit around the curve of the end panel, but it's going to go right up to the top. Okay, it's going to go right up to the top. So let me just get that out the way. So you see there's the end panel we've just stitched, and that goes right up to the top, and we want that to meet. We want to make sure that those two ends at the top edge meets. It's quite a difficult one to actually explain, and certainly to take a photograph of. So there's our end panel there, not a very good stitching, but there's our end panel there, and that's the lining to it. So we need to bring our lining right sides together with our end panel and right up to the top here. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Perhaps once it's stitched you'll be able to see better, but it was a tricky one to get that looking as I wanted it to look. So what we're going to do is that we're going to stitch that lining in. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same as we did before, and our lining has also been cut. You know, it's got little notches in it. I've just snipped into it 1/8 of an inch in so I can curve it around. I don't know if you can see, if I do that, whether you can see those notches cut out on there, but they are exactly the same as what we've just done. So make sure your outer piece is out of the way. get your stiletto and go around. Now you will find that this is easier, and I don't know why. It's just one of those wonderful tricks of nature, or sewing perhaps even, that the lining seems to be easier. Maybe because it's got no stabiliser on, I don't know. Maybe because it's already, this whole end panel has been stitched. I don't know what the answer is, but it is easier. So just all the way round, and if you can, see that's not going to match, do you see? But if you can, you want to get it to match. If it doesn't, we can trim it, okay? It's not a worry. And this happened to me when I was making it, and it's exactly the same size. So what we're going to do is, because I'm going to trim that little bit of an end there, can you see it's about 1/4 of an inch? I'll start 1/4 of an inch at the top here. So on the other side here, yeah, I'm going to start just a wee bit out, and I'm going to start from the top there and come round to the middle where I started. So there we go. So once again, I'm fitting a straight to a curve. So for I must admit, for a Making It Monday project, it's complicated. But I think once you make it and the penny drops, yeah, I think you'll make a lot. I think you really will make a lot. It's a great pattern, I must admit, even though I say so myself. Just make sure the top of that fits nicely. So when you're going to the top of the end panel, that it fits. And then we're just coming around as we did before. And it, like I say, I don't know why, but it fits a whole lot better than the outer. Maybe because it's not stabilised. So let's just come around here. And we'll just cut those threads off. Okay, so now you can see that that is attached to there. And if we bring that around, you can see that I've got a few threads there, but that fits absolutely beautifully, and that's your lining done on one end. Okay, so now what we've got to do is to, let me just do that round there like that. So you want right sides together, so your pouch, in fact, let me just get this on the overhead so you can see clearly, because like I say, it's a complicated little thing really. So we've stitched one end like that, okay? We've stitched one end like that, and that's beautifully lined inside, okay? But what we want to do is this end here. So bring this right side, this right side, all the way over the top. So you're fitting it to the right side of your end panel. So there's the notch. There's the notch just there. Yep. And there's the notch on the end panel. Let's just pop a pin in. So if all you've got to remember is right sides together, and then once again you're going to stitch the lining onto the end panel, okay? And it should fit, but I'm going to hang mine over by 1/4 of an inch. Could you make it stabilise 1/4 inch smaller, or do you need the strength? Yeah, I mean you could. I'm not sure it would make it any easier, Emma. It's absolutely worth a try. I'm always up for trying something, anything to help to make it easier. And this is why I said to you about don't use wadding. You can see why now. Right, so what we'll do is we'll start from the middle again. So don't forget, we've got right side of the end panel, yeah, and right side of our lining, which is gorgeous, isn't it? I must admit that is gorgeous. And I've put the two notches together. So the notch is halfway along one of your long edges, and the notch is also at the bottom of your little end panel. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch just as I did before. Do a little back stitch. If you ever start halfway on something like this, always do a back stitch. You don't want any weakness. To straighten everything out, you just want to make sure that your outer fabric is out of the way, and then you're just going to go round and pop it together. It's quite easy. It is an easy project. It's just fiddly. And I knew when I made it, I thought, some people might struggle with this. But also, some people like a challenge. And I'm always up for a challenge. And it's a nice, easy, easy project. And it's a useful project. So just get that end panel. Can you see I've moved that end panel round? And I'm going to use my stiletto to bring that fabric around so it's holding. Stitch a 1/2 inch, bring that end panel around again, because that end panel will want to move in. It just naturally wants to move in, but you've got to tell it that it's not. So hold it down and then stitch that last little bit. There we go. Okay. So again, you see, and it's the same width, it's the same size, and yet I'm out. Possibly because of the seam allowances, because the first one is just under 1/4 inch. The second one with the lining is 1/4 inch or over, and of course that will alter the measurements slightly. But goodness sake, we can trim anything, can't we? So now we're going from the top edge again. So I'm going to pop a pin in. So I'm going to overhang that by 1/4 inch and pop a pin in so it holds it straight. Pop it under the machine, and if you haven't got a needle down on your machine, then just get your needle in and then it'll hold everything. You can take the pin out. So let's just get our end panel in sight. There we go. And here we go. Just machine all those lovely layers together. Just try and keep your outer fabric out of the way. It should be fine. It just should be fine. But just be aware of it. And just tuck it. Look, you can see I'm tucking it under, out of the way, and just bringing that around. There we go. If we get a little crease in it, it doesn't matter. It's only the lining. So bring it round and cut it, and there we are. That's our lining in place. So let's just have a quick look at that on the overhead. Just move you over. So now we've got this. So let me just turn it through so you can see what it looks like. So it looks a bit weird because obviously you've got to manoeuvre it a little bit to get things to sit. So now what you need is a really good press, and I'm going to trim that little bit off there. You need it to give it a really good press to make sure that all your curves are sitting beautifully. Yeah, let me just move that so you can see it, and here as well. Okay, quite happy with what I've done. If the lining isn't brilliant, don't forget that is the lining, and unless somebody turns this inside out, nobody's going to see it. So I will trim that little bit back. A good press, please. Every stage, give it a good press, and then we're going to put the zip in. In fact, no, we've got to stitch this first, but then we'll put the zip in, and then obviously it'll be done. So let's just quickly get that little bit cut there. Back to me, just for a momento. And like I say, I reckon it's the seam allowance. I hadn't thought about it till just now, and it's because the first seam is, like I say, about 1/8 inch. The second seam is bigger, and of course that will adjust slightly the measurements. That makes perfect sense. Well, it does to me anyway. So let's just trim this back. Okay, that's fine. That's it. That'll do. Okay, that'll do. It's not perfect, but it'll do. So now what we've got to do is to stitch these two together. So let's just get that in a position so you can see it. So at the moment we've got it right sides out. So we want to turn that back. So we've got right sides together. And like I say, photography on this was just awful because you can see, how can I take a photograph of that? So it was tricky, and I think you've got 1 or 2 photographs in the pattern that does look a bit weird. So these are our top 2 edges. So you want to put them right sides together. There's no trickery. It's just that you've got that end panel there, which makes it look like it's all gathered. But that's our two top edges there, 2 and 2 together, okay, but we need to put a turning gap in one of them, and it doesn't matter which one. So I'm going to stitch them together. So if I quickly put pins in, so you've got some idea what you're doing. Now for those of you that are looking at this now and thinking, oh my word, I really want you to give it a go. I don't want you to be frightened of it. I want you to give it a go. So where my pins are, I'm going to use that as my turning gap. So I'm going to stitch from right outside here to outside corners and in. Okay, so it's the 2 top edges that we're stitching. On the second one here, I'm going to stitch all the way across. So if I pull that out, in fact, let me just show you on the stabilised side. I'm going to stitch from where my thumb is here, I'm wriggling, to where my blue fingernail is, or green fingernail is here, and I'm going to stitch all the way across. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. So let's just bring the side camera in so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing, I'm going to go straight across that's that one of the pairs. So I'm going right from the end. There's no need to back stitch because we're going over the seam that we just created, and then we're just going to stitch all the way across. Try and keep it at 1/4 inch or thereabouts. Just make sure your raw edges are sitting together. So it is a challenge, but you know what? Just take your time. And you could always hand baste it. You know, in my day, I was the same with you, I would imagine. When you went to school, everything was tacked, basted. And of course now we don't bother, do we? We use clips and pins and we don't bother. So I'm just going to take my pin out. I'm going to stitch to about there and do a back stitch. And then I'm going to bring my edges together here at the end. Let's get that so it's sitting straight. And I'm going to leave a gap of about 3 inches. I'm not measuring. Again, a back stitch so it's strong. Let me just get those sitting together. And you're going all the way across. So you've only done a turning gap on one of them. Good. So let's move that out the way. And we'll have a look at it on here. Oh, Lynn says she used to hate having to tack. Oh, me too, Lynn. But sometimes, you know what, it's really worth it. It really is worth it. So you're just clipping off your corners here. Be careful you don't get too close. And then we can turn it through. And I'm going to give it a press because this is going to be neat for the zip. And you know we're going to run over tonight, don't you? Right, so little reminder, folks. Oh, the side camera again. Oh, will I learn? There we are. So I've just snipped my corners here, okay. And I'm just going to turn it through and give it a press. And where we've got our turning gap here, let me show you my turning gap, yeah, on that top edge. We're going to make sure that those are pressed inwards, and we're going to use a little bit of quilter's tape, which if I've got it handy. If you want to, before you turn it through, you could fold these seams back. So wherever you've stitched up to, you could do this. My H250 isn't very well stuck down, but never mind. So just fold that back like that, flip it over and fold that one back. Give it a little press, because all of that will be caught in the zip, and then just turn it through. So we've clipped the corners, so they're really nice. And we're just going to turn it through. So let's find my turning tool. I was using this today. This is an 8mm knitting needle, and it's absolutely perfect because it's got a nice rounded tip to it. It's not too pointy, not too sharp, and it just pokes the corners out beautifully. So let's, whoops, there we are, just poke that through, and I just said it was just right. So there we are. So that's what we want 4 of those. So just keep poking these through, and while the iron's on, we'll give this a nice iron so it looks half decent. So another corner there, look, you can see how they look. Is anybody stitching along tonight? Yes, it is a posh knitting needle, Emma. Not that I do any knitting, I must have done it for TV or something. I don't know, I can't remember now. Right, so we've got some lovely straight edges here, and if we push all our ends out, you can see now that we've got the makings of a pouch or a pencil case. And then all we're going to do is put our iron on there and give that a lovely, lovely press, because we need that to look nice for our zip. Turn it over, and you see that's where the turned edges are here. So you could use quilter's tape now to hold that all in place. What you don't want to see particularly is too much of, excuse me licking my finger, too much of the lining. So you want to try and keep that lining out of the way. See how you get on with that. Because we don't really want a pop of orange. That's a little bit wonky, so I'm going to try and straighten that up a little bit. Not sure I can, but oh, here we are. Let's just move that seam out. It's amazing, if you haven't got your seam fully poked out, you end up with a curve. We don't want a curve, you want a nice straight edge. You need some sew flat. Wait a minute. I've got my sew flat here, Abigail. Let's give it a squirt. Mine's pina colada. What's yours? Oh, do you know what? That smells lovely. And it's absolutely perfect. It makes this so much, it's not, I can't describe it. It's just a perfect stiffness. It really is. And because obviously it's dampening your fabric as well, it gives it a lovely press too. So let's just get these little threads out the way. That'll do. I'm not worrying too much because we know we're going to overrun. And then just give everything a little press, and even these curves, if you can get into those curves, you can go in from the end and give it a press like that, put it on the end again and give it a press like that, and that will help you. You want your little boat, that's what you're after, a little boat. Okay, let's try and speed up proceedings. I hope you're all right. I hope you're not too bored. So we want our zip ends and we want our zip, and you'll see that I've already stitched the end of this to make sure that it's that it stays together. Okay, now with this you want to flip this over. So this is the right side at the moment. Let's just get rid of the ironing mat. So this is the right side of my zip at the moment. Okay, flip it over. So the wrong side of your zip is showing, and you want to put the end that's not folded onto the end of that like that. And this is where we could use a little clip. So I'll bring my little Natsuko in. I'm sure she won't mind being a clip holder. And we're going to stitch across this end, and you can see straight away that it's far too big, but that's good. Okay, it's good because that gives us options. So we're going to stitch along there, we're going to stitch along there, and then we're going to just fold that over. We're going to fold it so it's nice and flat. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about. So let's just move you in. There we go. And you're going to stitch. Now, what I do suggest is when you come to the zipper tape, which is just about there now, I would do a little back stitch. So I'll try and get my fingers out of the way. And so go straight over. Oops, that was a bit silly. Let's just move my needle, just a sec. I took it right off kilter. So when you get to the tape, I've done it again. That's because my fingers, I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way. Do another little back stitch just to secure that end and then come off. Okay. It's a bit wonky, and you know why that is? It's because I can't hold it. If I hold it, my hands are in the way. So, well, you know what? I don't mind. It's just I like to explain to you why that was wonky. So get to your tape. So when you've got to your tape, and then just do a couple of stitches back. Get to your tape. A little bit better. Still a bit wonky. Get to your tape. Stitches back, okay, and cut your threads. Okay, and then what you've got then is a nice edge like this. Okay, so what I want you to do now is finger press that if you want to, and if you want to, you could top stitch it. Okay, I don't mind what you do, but that's how it looks. That's wrong side. Yeah. And so now we've finger pressed that. So what you want to do now is fold over the folded end so it sits right on top of your seam. So let me do that again. There's your seam. That's your folded end here. You're going to take it over and you're going to get it so it's lined up. I'm going to put a clip there to hold it. Okay, so it looks like that. And then what you're going to do is stitch along here and here. Now, I'm going to draw a line so it's easy for you to see. And I want you to stitch just a wee bit wider than your zipper tape, because you're going to turn this through. It's not a very good bit of drawing I've just done, but you'll see. Okay, so it's about 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of the tape. So I want you to stitch there, and then we're going to trim it, okay? Hopefully you've got that. So I'll take my clip out. Clips is too heavy for this fabric, so I'll just get rid. So again, put the foot down, do a little back stitch, just one, and come up to the top. Little back stitch and cut, okay? Turn it around. And we'll start from the top. We can start from the open end if you want. Just cut the threads, what a fool. One back stitch. And then come off to the end as far as you dare, and then do a back stitch and cut. Okay, so it looks like that. Happy? And then you can cut it if you want to. So trim it back to about 1/8 of an inch. Trim any threads if they're in the way. Just try and keep it tidy. And you're going to trim it like that. Okay, good. So we're going to do the other end. So fold it back. We're still on the wrong side of the zip. Look, it's just there. Fold it back. Bring your folded edge over so it meets. Draw a line if you want to, but we're stitching about 1/16 of an inch away from that tape. So I'm just going to go for it, but quite honestly, I do, even now after all these years, I would prefer to actually draw a line. So one little back stitch, right, two, up to the top, as far as you dare, because some machines will take that fabric into your machine if you're not careful. Turn it around, make sure those edges are fairly okay. You know, that they're meeting, not too bad anyway. One little stitch, right, two stitches back, come down, off the end, and then go back, and you're securing all of those stitches. So, okay, so that's what we've got this time. A little bit out there, but you know what, it's not going to matter. So let's just trim those. Lots of threads, I hate threads, and just trim that, okay? So that's what we've got. And then what you're going to do is turn this through. Now, if you haven't backstitched here and here, and if you haven't backstitched when you've gone over your zip, like do you remember we did, some of these stitches might come undone because we're going to put it under a little bit of pressure. But all you're going to do, and I'll get my lovely knitting needle, is you're turning it back on itself. Okay, there's all my loose threads there. You need to trim them. And you've made a little zip cap. Let me just Oh gosh, where's my other scissors? I could do it with my little embroidery scissors really, but there we are. Trim all these threads back because they're untidy and ugly. And then if you tuck that in, you've already got the folded edge. Make sure that you've pushed your points out. And then tuck all that in because there will be a little end showing there. And you can do this the other way around if you want. And then all we're going to do is stitch over the top of that. Now, if you're not comfortable with top stitching that, then please hand stitch, okay? But we'll go over the top of it. We'll machine it. And I could have done with that just that little bit longer, but there we are. I won't mind, as long as you don't mind. And sometimes it'll catch on your machine and other times it'll be fine. This is why I suggested about hand stitching. There we go. Not the most neatest of jobs, but I think we'll be all right with that. We'll be all right with that. And then all we're going to do the same the other side. So where we finish stitching, we're just going to turn that through. Again, use your lovely pokey tool, whatever you've got. Just be careful with it. Just be gentle. And then just poke those corners out. Once you've learned how to do this and you make a neat job of it, because at the end of the day, however you do this, you're going to see both sides. So whether you turn this to the back or whether you turn it to the front, you're going to see both sides. So there's the other end there, you see, and we're just going to top stitch across there. But it's just keeping everything neat. And again, you might want to use your stiletto to hold it. If you have any thread sticking out, you could always just cut them off when you're finished. Now this might stick, you know some machines do, don't they? This machine does. For all the money it cost, it still sticks on things like that. So just bring your cover over. There we go, caught it now. And I'm not going to back stitch, I'm just going to leave it like that. So we've got a few little threads there and a few little stitches that are on show, but you know, you can trim those up. I'm not going to do it now because we haven't got time. But then we've made this lovely, lovely little end cap for our zip, and you might want to make sure that all of these corners have been pulled out so it's a nice, neat finish, okay? And then of course we got our zip and it just fits to the end beautifully. Really lovely. Okay, so the last little bit, guys, the last little bit, and you hear my dog barking. I'm sure you don't mind us taking a little time on this. So what we need to do now is find the centre of our top panels, okay, our top pieces, okay. You want to find the centre, so fold it, the lining, so the lining is right sides together. Now you can't notch it obviously, but you can get a heat erasable pen, or if you're using a dark fabric you can use chalk. And if you noticed mine that I made earlier, I've still got the chalk marks on there and they don't even line up. I mean, what sort of thing is that? So again bring over your lining together and make yourself a little mark. So we're finding the centre of our pouch there, that line there. Can you see? Just across there. What I want to make sure is that you will put some quilter's tape in here. Okay, you will put quilter's tape in here. I'm going to just pop a pin in there and I'll move it when I'm stitching, but I want you to glue that so it's nice and secure. Then I want you to get your zip, close it up, bring the two ends together, and I want you to, on the right side of your zip, I want you to make a mark. I don't want you to cut it, I want you to make a mark. So let's just make a mark there. It's a tiny little mark just there, but I'm going to make it bigger so you can see it and I can see it. And that's the centre of my zip. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to place our zip inside our bag and we're going to just line it up like that. Now you don't want this right up against the teeth, otherwise you might struggle to open and close your bag, okay? So you're lining it up about 1/16 of an inch along the teeth there, okay? So you've got a little bit of a gap going on. I don't know if you can see that, how small that is, but it's not enough to interfere with the zipper teeth when you undo the zip. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this on all the way across, and we're going to do a second line to hold. In fact, I'll show you, before I do that second line, I'll show you what the zip looks like without that second line of stitching, okay? So we're going to do one at a time. So I'll just bring my machine in, and then we will have a look at the stitching. So because we've pinned it in the middle, okay, you might want to pin it further down so it's secure. Let me do that just so you can see. So let's just pop a pin in. It's not quite straight, but you get the idea. And then we're going to start at this, let me just get rid of that. We're going to start at this end here. So obviously you're not coming right up to the end where your zip tab is. You're going to start a little way away. So pop it under your machine, and ideally you're not going to have the lining showing. Mine shows just a wee bit, but I'll live with it. Now I don't need to put a zipper foot on. I do need to do a back stitch though. And I'm going to take my pins out because I know I'll catch my fingers on them, and they are so sharp. So let's just line that up and go all along the length of the zip. So don't forget, I've got a giveaway tonight, and the giveaway is what was it? I've forgotten. What was it? Oh yes, the Kim kit. The Kim kit, okay? So that's the giveaway for tonight. So if you said hello to me, and you've made a nice comment, or you've said hello to people on the feed, then your name will be picked out and I'll send that to you. If you've got a walking foot, use your walking foot, because that all helps. When you come to the end, you really do need to do a back stitch. Okay, so don't miss that piece out. So I want you to have a look. Now, can you see we've got a wibbly wobbly zip, and that's because we haven't done a second row of stitching, okay? So let's do a second row. So it's about 1/4 inch, but I want you to gauge it by what you've just done. So 2 lovely rows of stitching. Don't forget, if you're using a contrasting thread, you will see it on the zip. So just go canny, as they say. Just go carefully. And then just cut your thread. So we've done 2 rows. So have a little look, see? Okay, and now we haven't got that wibbly wobbly. Once that's pressed, you'll get a beautiful straight edge to your zip, and that makes a huge difference. Right, overhead now, because this is going to be the part where you're going to do the second side. Okay, so we've got one side in. Obviously my threads need cutting and it needs tidying up, but let's ignore it. So you need to line up with that centre mark again, but what I want you to do is open up the zip completely, and I want you just to deal with 1/2. I want you to line that up as we did before, so you know that both halves are in the right place. But what I also want you to do, once that's pinned, oh my, there's so many threads here, it's making me gross. I want you to have a look and make sure that fits. And look, it doesn't, it's not quite there. So instead of lining up in the middle, and now you know why my chalk mark was moved, and all that's due to is the fact that I haven't got a walking foot on there, and that has moved all that fabric along. There we are. Now you know why a walking foot is so useful. So line it up. Get your zips so they absolutely line up to perfection, okay? And what I'll do is I will put another pin in here, and I will be aiming for that pin. I'm not going to worry about anything else other than that pin, and that will line up. Oh, ouch, I knew I was going to do that. That will line up my ends, and my stitching in between will make sure that that fits, okay? So although you've got that centre mark there, that may well have shifted, but you want these ends to be pretty okay. So, oh, I've got to show you the pouch from yesterday. Yes, I will. So let's just move that along, because that's not quite right. I haven't quite got my corners out very nicely at all. I'm going to just pin that in. That's a bit better. So open up your zip, because that's the only way you're going to be able to stitch this, by opening up the zip. And now you've got a flat edge to stitch. Okay, although this is there, you've got all that zippage there helping you to get that under the machine. It's really useful that we've got that long zip, and that we can open it. Otherwise, if we didn't have the long zip, it would be very tricky indeed. So pop it under your machine. If you've put a pin there to hold it, then keep that pin in there until, that's it, until you've got those first couple of stitches in, okay? So my needle's in, and that's held my zip in place. Just going to do a back stitch. Let's do another one. That's it. So now I'm just going to line this up. I've got a little bit of the lining showing, which I'm not happy about, but there we are. All the way along. Just bring that up to there. You might want to pin it, as I said. You could use quilter's tape as well, don't forget. And now we've got this other end here where the pin is. I want to make sure that I reach that and that it all is all sitting beautifully, and I think it's going to be absolutely fine. So all the way along, I'll take that pin out, gone up to the other end, a few little back stitches just to make sure we hold it. Okay, and like I said before, you'll end up with a roughly zip. Do you see? When you compare to the other side, which is lovely and flat and will be even better when you press it. So now what we're going to do is that second row. So this is really, you might think, oh, it's just a little bit of frippery, but actually it really is important. So all the way along, it's about 1/4 inch apart. Keep your rows straight. You might want to draw a line again and cut. Okay, good. So let's just move that over, and we'll get you on the overhead there. And apart from all the threads I need to cut, that is now complete. Let's just move that right out of the way. So I've got lots of threads hanging off there. I don't mind if you see them, because I will fix them later. And that is our pouch made, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And I'm loving the mauve zip with that. It's got the ends on there like we talked about before, but you might want to, as I said, you might want to put a little popper on there, or a snap fastener to hold that down. That's up to you. But do use a walking foot. Do give every stage a press, and use some lovely spray, because obviously that helps with the pressing. And you'll see how straight and flat my my zipper is. So let me just go and get this little pouch that I bought. Oops, there we go. In fact, I bought two little things. I'll show you. Oops. They're from my favourite person, Michelle James, but she doesn't really have a website or anything like that, so it's a bit of a shame. So the first thing is the pouch. So there's the pouch I bought, and it's all felted, so it's lovely blanket material here. And all this, can you see, this has been felted, and she's stitched on it as well. And she's just hand stitched pieces of fabric on here, and she's got some lovely beautiful buttons and added those on. A little bit of lace there as well. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and of course I could have made it myself, but sometimes it's good to support. I'm just seeing if she closed her turning gap. She did. Better than me. But sometimes it's nice to support other artists. And I also bought a lovely little needle case as well. So there we go. So similar buttons. Again, blanket material, which has been satin stitched all the way around on her machine. A little bit of printing going on there. Maybe that's a stamp, you know, rubber stamp. And this time it's been machined, and she's added those buttons as well. And then it's just a simple snap fastener, an old-fashioned, what I call an old-fashioned snap fastener. and then obviously you got the pins and needles inside. So I probably won't ever use them, but I'll always have them to one side so I can just look at them and be inspired by them. So those are the two little things. I bought lots of other bits, but these are the two pre-made things that I bought from Michelle. And I'm hoping to interview her when I see her next. It probably won't be actually until next year, but I'm going to interview her, and I'm going to see if I can stock some of her stuff because it's just so beautiful. Somebody says they wish Helen, was it? Debbie says she wishes she'd saved her old army blankets, and yeah, they're not hugely expensive to buy, and they're perfect for felting. So if you wanted to do felting or this type of thing, they're absolutely perfect for it. Yeah, gorgeous. And again, it's been used for the needle case as well. Lovely, isn't it? Right, that's my marathon over with. Just got to trim all the ends and make it look pretty. I'm not sure I can. And I hope you have a go with it. I know it looks very complicated because of the curves, but I want you to have a go. And what you'll get in the end is this beautiful little case that you can put all your bits and bobs in, perhaps your makeup, all that sort of thing, and make it look really smart. And especially if you use some Liberty fabrics, you can't go wrong, can you? Okay, so that's me done. I'm sorry I've taken so long, and my goodness me, it's 20 past. But I will pick a name out afterwards, and I can see that it's 2021, so I'll make sure that I catch. Thank you, Abigail. I'll make sure I catch it just in the live, the comments, okay? And then I'll pick a name out for the Kim kit, which is just glorious, really is. And she makes them especially for me, so you can't get these anywhere else in the whole world except with me. Right, thanks ever so much for watching, everybody. For my my online members group, my fabulous Lizzie's Fabulous Sewing Group, I will see you on Thursday. And we've got the new patterns. Oh, I think you might like the new patterns. And you've got 3. I know, you've got 3 patterns for April. I know. Anyway, I'll see you Thursday. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely